What is good, everyone? This is your host, Tarod McKnight, and you are now tuned into TARODCAST. For all of you brand new listeners tuning into our show for the very first time, welcome. For all of the returning listeners coming back for another weekly dose of TARODCAST awesomeness, welcome back. At TARODCAST, you can take everything we say with a grain of salt. We simply just want to add some flavor to your meal. So if we're doing that, then we are doing our job. Today's episode is actually based on an insect. Yes, it's an insect, but it's one that has always been very dear to me because of its journey, its entire life journey, and how it truly speaks to me and my growth as a human being. And so without further ado, today's TARODCAST topic is the butterfly effect. This is TARODCAST. Let's get it. All right, everyone, welcome to TARODCAST. I am your host again, Tarod McKnight, and I just want to say welcome. You know, today's episode is one that is very near and dear to my heart, and really every TARODCAST episode is near and dear to my heart, but this one in particular is one that really resonates within me. And so I want to talk about what I mean when I say the butterfly effect. I know some of y'all may have seen the Ashton Kutcher movie, and this is not about that. This is about the journey of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly and how that actually gives me purpose when it comes to where I am in my life right now and what I've been able to learn. So before we get into that, as always, you got to take care of those house-cleeping details. So if you would like to take our show with you on the go, just know that we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Podchaser, Castbox, Podcast Addict, iHeartRadio, Deezer, and YouTube. TARODCAST is also on Throne. Throne is a free live messaging application that allows us here at TARODCAST to exclusively reach you, our listeners. Make sure to sign up if you'd like to keep the conversations going after the episode. Also, if you are looking for natural oils for ultimate hydration and care for your hair and skin, hit up The Resilient Lotus at www.theresilientlotus.com. She's doing some awesome work there. And if you are a lover of authentic, chunky salsas, make sure to reach out to Morenitas Salsitas. My stomach is growling just thinking about that food. And last but not least, for those of you who like makeup, hit up my girl, Jazz by Jackie. The work that she's doing is truly amazing. And so when it comes to that, if you are looking for affordable makeup styles, if you are a woman listening to this podcast and you are, or a man, if you are looking for affordable makeup makeovers, hit up Jazz by Jackie. As always, all of this information will be in our episode notes. So when I talk about the butterfly effect, I first want to start with the caterpillar. And actually, before I start with the caterpillar, I want to start with the egg, because the egg is the incubation point. The egg is where the things, the situations, the circumstances are being put into place in order for this organism to hatch. And so when I think about the egg, it's full of potential. It's full of the things necessary in order for this caterpillar to hatch and to thrive and to begin the process of metamorphosis. And when I think about this, we all start as eggs. If you want to think about this in the anatomical sense, yes, a woman in her womb houses eggs, and we as men, we have the necessary biological resources to fertilize that egg, to begin the process of metamorphosis and allowing that egg to begin the necessary steps in order to create life. And just simply even thinking about the fact that women have the ability to carry and create life is something that is amazing to me. Like, again, being front and center when my daughter was born was such a life-changing experience, because I actually got to see the process of life being born. And so when I think about the caterpillar in its egg state, there's so much potential. There's so much that's unknown, but there's so much hope in what can be hatched from this egg. And so when I think about the caterpillar itself, when it hatches, the first thing that it knows to do is to eat. And one of the more common ways to look at this process is the process of the monarch butterfly. I know a lot of us in our elementary schools, when we were learning about nature, one of the things that we did, well, I know in my school, we actually bred monarch butterflies, and it was such an interesting process to observe, because we had to learn what the caterpillars needed to eat in order to survive. We had to create the conditions where this particular organism could thrive and actually be healthy and go through its entire life cycle. And so in looking at the caterpillar, I see that when the caterpillar hatches, its first instinct is to eat. Its first instinct is to travel where food is plentiful. And so when I think about my journey in my life, being a young child, there's so much out here in this world that is completely brand new. There's so much that I don't know, and my instincts are telling me to eat. And I don't mean to eat physically, but also to absorb everything that I potentially can, because everything is so new to me. Everything is sparkly and shiny, and sometimes that gets me into trouble that may cause varying degrees of destruction. I think about my own daughter right now. She's 4, and she wants to play, and she wants to make messes, and she wants to be loud. I mean, some of y'all have heard her on previous podcast episodes, and to be honest, I'm not going to apologize for that, because as a child, everything is new, everything is sparkly, everything is made for her consumption. And we need to understand that, when it comes to us being kids, it's understandable that we are innately selfish, because we only know the world how it pertains to us. And the thing is, as guides, as parents, we are the ones who are given the charge, given the responsibility of guiding these young lives in a way where, as they continue to grow and transition, they begin to receive the knowledge that they need. They begin to receive the resources that they need in order to build their framework of the world, to truly complete their worldview. And so we have to remember that children are experiencing the world for the very first time, and it is a very blunt time. If there's one thing that I can say about my own daughter, is that she is not afraid to tell me what is on her mind. She is not afraid to point out things that maybe I might be self-conscious about, but as children, we all do it. We all did it. And we have to remember that there was a time where we did not know the world as we know it now. And because we didn't have that knowledge, and because we were learning things for the very first time, we have to have that patience. We have to accept the fact that sometimes things are going to be destroyed. Things are going to not always go our way. We're not going to have the picture perfect model child. We're not going to have the picture perfect model childhood in many cases. And we have to understand that that is okay, because we are learning for the very first time. Our brains are sponges, and they are absorbing all of these sensory, all of these sensory, what's the word I'm looking for? I tend to do that sometimes, but everything that is coming to us, everything that is being put in front of us, we are feeling and experiencing for the very first time. And because we have to understand that sometimes things will not always go the way that we expect. And this is where we begin to learn how things work. This is where we begin to learn how people work. And understanding that, for every cause, there is an effect. Like the caterpillar, when the caterpillar sets out on its journey towards its metamorphosis, it begins from a place of hunger. It begins from a place of, I need to grow, and I need to do it as quickly and as fast as I can. And so with the monarch butterfly, the monarch caterpillar, there is a certain type of plant that it gravitates towards called the milkweed plant. And this is going to be its primary source of nutrition. And so it's going to continue to seek out this milkweed plant in order to give itself the nutrients needed to complete its metamorphosis, to complete its life cycle. And the thing is, for all the plant lovers out there, the caterpillar, it has to eat. It has to eat. And so, yes, it will destroy those milkweed leaves in order to fill itself. And one of the things that I realized, even in my life, is that for me, there were a lot of things that I got whoopings for. There were a lot of things that I was disciplined for. And there were a lot of things that I destroyed, whether it was physically or whether it was ideologically. Because for me, I did not know. I did not have the knowledge that my parents had as far as their way of thinking about life. And so as I'm experiencing things for the very first time, as I'm growing and absorbing all of these things that are giving me a perspective on life, there are just going to be some things that I don't have the capacity to understand at a certain point. And the thing is, as guides to our children, we have to be able to see the bigger picture. We can't necessarily take that personal, because there are so many things in this life that can actually be replaced, but people cannot. And so we have to really, really take time to dial in and just accept that fact. Because if we do everything that we can to try and raise a wonderful human, then everything else doesn't matter. If we do everything that we can to connect with this small human as they continue to grow and transition, then nothing else matters. All of it will be for naught. Because when they grow and they have an understanding and they have a way of thinking that gives them the tools that they need to survive, then everything becomes worth it. Everything finds its purpose. Everything finds its meaning. And so when it comes to this caterpillar, I want that caterpillar to eat. I want that caterpillar to grow, to be healthy, so that way it can continue on its journey. Because there's so much in store for this little insect that it doesn't even know about. But the thing is, the only thing that it knows right now is to survive. And oftentimes that caterpillar is alone. It has every potential to be prey to something else. be it birds or other small creatures or other insects or whatever the case may be. It is walking in this world by itself. And it has to understand that sometimes things will get incredibly difficult, even if you don't even understand why they're difficult or where that difficulty is coming from. But the thing is, we have to be able to protect and preserve that. We have to be able to allow ourselves, even as kids and for our own children, for those of us who have children, we have to be able to preserve that childlike innocence. We have to be able to preserve that magic that our children see when it comes to how they view the world, because again, they are seeing and experiencing things for the very first time. And it is our job as guides to help them make sense of everything that they are seeing. And so this means that we also have a level of responsibility to our children, because they are going to be the generation that comes behind us. They are going to rule the world one day. And unless we actually stop and think about what we are feeding our children, then we might as well just throw them out to the wolves. Because this life that we live is full of all kinds of mess. But at the same time, it is also filled with all kinds of magic. And so we have to decide what's going to be more important. I'm not saying that we have to lie to our kids. I don't tell my daughter that Santa Claus is real. I don't tell her that the Tooth Fairy is real. I'm sorry, if you go to school with my daughter, she will more than likely tell you that Santa Claus is not real, because I'm not going to have her believing in something that is completely fabricated. That will destroy her. I want her to actually believe in people that she can see, feel, and touch, that love her, that she actually can run back to. I want her to believe in things like that, because that is what's going to feed her the necessary things that she will need in order to survive when she grows. And for me, I know I needed that too, because there are some things that I used to believe that I don't believe now. And I'm having to restructure my entire thought process, because I've had to cast away a lot of those things in order to become the person that I am now. And so when that caterpillar gets its fill, when that caterpillar receives the necessary amount of nutrients, when it grows to a certain point of its maturity, it goes into a period of stasis. It creates a cocoon. And so after our break, we're going to talk about the cocoon, or the chrysalis. And we're going to talk about what that means when it comes to this entire butterfly effect. So I hope you guys have your glasses of water, glasses of wine, whatever the case is. I hope you have it close by. Take a sip, and we'll be right back. This is TARODCAST. Yo, what's good, everyone? This is your host of TARODCAST, Tarod Rashawn, and I just want to welcome you to the commercial break. Now, you already know what time it is. It's hydration time. Get some high-quality H2O in your system now. Got a few things I'd like to go over. First, to all of our new and returning listeners, thank you so much for your ear and your time. To all of our Patreon supporters, I just want you to know that we are not able to do this without your direct support. So the biggest, dopest TARODCAST thank you goes out to you. If you're listening in and you're thinking about becoming part of the TARODCAST Patreon family, we'd love to have you. You can find us at www.patreon.com/TARODCAST. Now on Patreon, we have 3 tiers of support. a $2 tier, a $3 tier, and lastly, a $6 tier. Each tier comes with its own set of unique perks, so if you find one that fits you, sign up. For us, the main thing is keeping our subscription prices affordable. We know that you work hard for your money, and if you choose to support TARODCAST this way, we truly want to make it worth your time. To find out more about our Patreon and the perks with each tier, visit www.patreon.com/TARODCAST. We've got it all laid out for you. Also, we've got a merchandise store. Pick up some tees, hoodies, leggings, and more at forevercertain.redbubble.com. All proceeds go right back into the TARODCAST podcast and allow us to keep making high quality content for people just like you. For our listeners out there who would like to support us in a non-monetary way, we'd love that too. Share our show with people you know. Also, share us on your social media. And if your favorite TARODCAST streaming service allows you to rate and review our show and you're loving what you're hearing, take some time and leave us a 5-star review. Ratings and reviews are what set us apart from other podcasts and also helps us to recommend our podcast to other listeners we otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to reach. Lastly, if you'd like to reach out to us directly, email us at TARODCAST@CRTN-T.com. That's TARODCAST@CRTN-T.com. All of this information can always be found in our episode notes, so make sure to check there if you forget any of the information we just went over. Once again, thank you all so much, and let's get back to the program. All right, y'all. Welcome back to TARODCAST. I am your host, Tarod Rashawn, and now we are going to talk about the chrysalis, the cocoon, whatever you like to call it. We're still talking about the butterfly effect, and we're going through each stage in the butterfly's metamorphosis. So let's go ahead and get started now. So, when the caterpillar actually reaches a point where it is time for it to be still, where it is time for it to begin the process of its transformation. I look at this in my life as the teen years of my life, where for a lot of that time I felt like I was in between so many different things. I was stuck in this place where so many things were happening and there was so much that I couldn't make sense of, and I had to be still. I had to understand that for me, this is a period of time where the world outside is going to continue moving, and I might be hit with different things that I don't understand, but in that process, it's allowing me to strengthen. It's allowing me to grow. And so what the caterpillar does is, once it receives the nutrients necessary to decide within itself that now it is time for me to go and create my chrysalis, it goes to a branch, it goes to a tree limb, and it begins to create a layer that will protect it. But at the same time, it also makes it very vulnerable, because during this time, it has to be still. It has to remain stagnant. It has to allow the protective layer to do its job and aid in its transformation. And so, again, with the monarch butterfly, it basically suspends itself upside down and creates a protective chrysalis around itself in order to facilitate that process of transformation, that process of metamorphosis. And during this time, when I think about my teenage years, there was a lot of things that I had grown to begin understanding when it came to the things that I learned as a child and the way that the world is beginning to impact me as a young adult. And so thinking about those types of experiences, it put me in a place where I really had to sit and reflect on who I was and who I wanted to be. because there were parts of my life that, for me, as I look back on them, the things that I believed, the things that I subscribed to, they aided in my destruction. They aided in my mindset being one that was not welcome, one that I thought was incredibly self-righteous. But the matter of fact about the whole situation is that I was completely wrong. I had little to no knowledge about the things that I thought I knew about. It came from a place of self-righteous judgment and speculation. And so as I conducted myself, I realized just how many times I was actually the villain in people's stories, where I thought that I was the perfect, quintessential, self-righteous young man. But I really wasn't. I was condescending. I was a person that had no regard for anyone else's life. I was a person that, when it came to something I didn't agree with, it didn't matter what you said, because my opinion was the right opinion, and you just have to get like me. And I remember just continuing the transition through my young adult life, and to see that there were so many times I was wrong, even though I believed with all of my heart that I was right. And it transformed me and put me in this place where I had to really think about who I was. I had to really think about what it was that I stood for. I had to really reevaluate everything I believed in. And in that process, I had to be still. I had to take the blows. I had to allow myself to be completely vulnerable and open. And so as I started getting into my young adult years, there were a lot of periods of time where reflection was key for me, because it was at this point where I had to start deciding who I wanted to be as a person, who I wanted to be as a black man, because I was already a weird kid. I wasn't one that automatically subscribed to a lot of the stereotypical actions and ways of being that most young black adult men like me were subscribing to. And so I had to really take some time just to meditate. And maybe I didn't know it was meditating at that time, but just to sit back and actually think about who I was and who I wanted to be. And did I want those two people to be the same people? And so in this stillness, I had to reevaluate the way that I treated people. I had to reevaluate the way that I conducted myself. Because when I looked at the lives that I had an opportunity to impact, I had to ask myself, was it for the right reasons, or was it for my own personal gain? Was it something that for me gave me the opportunity to show people my heart, to show people love, to show people empathy? And for a lot of that, it wasn't. For a lot of it, it was me wanting to impose my right, the right that I felt was above anyone and everyone else, to correct them and to show them that the lives that they were leading to this path of destruction, unbeknownst to me that I was actually destroying myself. And so during this period of time in my life, I had to actually take time to be still. I had to actually take time to just think. And the world itself, the world around me, sending all of its wind and rain and heat, it was impacting me in a way that I could do nothing about. I couldn't move. Because it wasn't time for me to move yet. I wasn't ready to move yet. I wasn't prepared to move yet. And so accepting this was probably one of the hardest things that I actually had to do, because there was so much about me that was built on expectations from other people, and I adopted those expectations as my own. And I had to sit and ask myself, what do I expect from myself? What do I require from myself? Not what do other people require of me? No, because they're not here in this chrysalis with me. They're not aiding in my transformation. What is it that I need? What is it that I have the sole purpose of doing? And so thinking about these things, it began to transform me. Again, I've said this in prior episodes, people really dug into me during my young adult years because I was walking around with this childlike sense of entitlement because of how I felt about myself and what I believed. And so to be at a place where I had to be still and I had to just take every blow, it hurt. It hurt a lot because I was completely vulnerable. I was completely exposed. But in that same exposure, in that same vulnerability is where I learned so much more about myself. I learned so much that I wouldn't have the opportunity to learn if I just continued doing what I was doing. It required me to be still. It required me to be in a place where everything that was happening to me, I had to find the purpose. I had to find the meaning. I had to find out why these things were happening. And in that why is when I discovered that I have to really change who I am if I am going to be effective, if I'm going to be a better friend, if I'm going to be a better lover, if I'm going to be a better empath. I have to realize what it is that I need to let go of as I begin to transform. Because if I don't, when I finally emerge from this chrysalis, I won't be able to fly. And the last thing that I want is to not be able to fly. And so with that being said, after this last break, we're going to talk about emerging from that chrysalis. We're going to talk about the full transformation and how a butterfly looks nothing like a caterpillar once it finally emerges. So again, keep your water or your wine close by. We're going to take our last break and we'll be right back. This is TARODCAST. All right, y'all, welcome back from our last break. This is your host again. If you somehow forgot who I was, I hope you didn't, but if you did, this is Tarod Rashan and you are listening to TARODCAST. And we are now going to talk about the transformation and the breaking out of the chrysalis. And so when it comes to this, one of the more interesting things that I learned is that when a caterpillar is in a chrysalis, you have to let it struggle to get out. You can't cut it open because that struggle is needed in order to pump blood through the vessels of its newly formed wings. And if you cut it, it eliminates that struggle. And now you have an emerging butterfly that cannot fly. And you have a butterfly that cannot fulfill its purpose. And so when I think about my struggle out of the chrysalis, and this is more leaning towards the place where I am now, the emergence from my chrysalis in my, upcoming 30th year. I turn 30 next week, y'all. June 19th, Juneteenth. I think I have a special birthday. But when it comes to that struggle of breaking out of that chrysalis, I think about all the things that have gone right and also gone completely wrong in my life. And the fact that while I was in that place of stillness, awaiting my emergence, I had to come to terms with the fact that I didn't have everything right. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't have the things that I thought would shape me into the person that I needed to be. And so for a caterpillar, once it begins its process of emerging from a chrysalis after a couple of weeks in its life cycle, it begins to tear open and you begin to see a completely new being. It has to claw its way out. It has to bite its way out. It has to. It's necessary. Because again, this is where that caterpillar gets the necessary blood flow in order to aid in its emergence, in order for all of its new parts to function properly. And so as it emerges, you see it piece by piece. You see that its wings are folded. You see it slowly coming out, crawling out, and taking time to climb its way to that same branch that it was at one point hanging from, completely suspended, completely vulnerable. You see it climbing out from that struggle and resting on that branch. And you see it opening its wings for the very first time. You see it opening its beautiful wings for the very first time, allowing the sun to hit those wings to display its magnificent coloration. You see it, and it's such a beautiful sight. It's so simple, but it's so magnificent. It's so profound. Because when you understand what that caterpillar had to do in order to reach that point where it is right at the cusp of fulfilling its purpose, you understand that it was necessary. And so when I think about my life right now, in this emergent stage, where right now I am on that same branch, emerging from my own chrysalis, fanning my wings, allowing the sun to give me the energy needed to take off and fly, I realized that for me, there's so much of myself that I learned. And there's so much of myself that I continue to learn. But this is because now I have every right, I have the full potential to fly and engage in my purpose. And so once that butterfly is able to expand its wings, it takes off in flight. And that butterfly goes on to pollinate flowers around the world, to also eat, but also to provide. It makes its journey knowing that my purpose is to help other things grow. That's why I am able to fly. That's why I have the nectar and the pollen that sticks to my legs, because I am cross-pollinating other flowers and giving them what they need so that they can also fulfill their duty. And to me, that is such a beautiful thing. I feel like as adults, especially those of us who are millennials, This is where we find our purpose. Yes, we got to eat too. We still have to eat. That doesn't change. But what are we also doing for one another? How are we helping others to grow? And so when I think about my life here and now, I realize that my purpose here, even with this podcast, is to help other people to grow, to help myself to grow. This is one of the most vulnerable things I can do as a Black man, to actually share my feelings, to actually just be real with y'all in this type of medium. But the thing is, I'm proud of it, because for me, I enjoy being able to just sit and feel like I'm talking to you, and hoping that something that I may say will spark something in you that will be that cross-pollination. Because even now, I realize that there are mistakes I have made, even recently, that when I look at them, I understand the purpose behind them. I understand more about myself. It doesn't stop my ability to fly. It just allows me to know that the things that I am capable of are things that I would not have the understanding to understand if I didn't have the ability to fly. Because when you can fly, you see the world from a completely different perspective. You see that there are things that only you can do. And for me, there are things that only I can do. And so when I think about the butterfly reaching its final stage of metamorphosis, I realize that it has so much purpose. And because it understands its purpose, you see its beauty. You see the undeniable, unmistakable beauty in that being. And that's why, for me, it's my favorite insect. That's why, for me, it truly tells a story of my life. And so I hope that for all of you out here who are listening, you can look at this type of example and see that we all go through the same process. It is a process that starts with no knowledge of anything in this world. All we know is how to survive. We are self-centered at that stage. And then when we finally reach that stage of stillness, when we're starting to make sense of everything that's happening to us, we have to take it. We have to understand what's happening to us, or else we will always be victims to circumstance. We have to take responsibility. We have to take accountability for our actions, and we have to really process that and know what that really means. And once we finally reach that point, we will be able to emerge and be beautiful, and we will be able to use those things that we learned in order to help others. It's all about giving back. When you finally realize that you can fly, you will want to give back. I hope you want to give back. Because for me, that's what I want to do. That gives me purpose. My heart is what I want to give. I have no problem giving that, but I also know who I need to give it to as well. And those are the people that matter the most to me in my life. And so as I fly, I encourage you to fly with me. Break out of that chrysalis. Understand everything that is going on right now, right here in your life. So that way you can open up your wings and fly, because there's going to be a great migration. And if that happens, we're all going to fly together. I guarantee it. But y'all, that's our show. You all know how to find us and support us. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review on your podcasting platform of choice, and also take the conversation to our throne room. We keep everything in our episode notes. But as always, wherever you are, whomever you are, I want to always encourage you to be more introspective and vulnerable with yourself. Know who you are, trust in who you are, and love who you are. I've been your host, Tarod McKnight. I thank you all for listening. And as I always say, make every effort to find and keep your peace. Till next time.